My name is Ali, I'm a doctor and YouTuber.
I'm Tamor, I'm a data scientist and writer.
And you're listening to Not Overthinking,
the weekly podcast where we think about happiness, creativity, and the human condition. Hello, welcome to another episode of Not Overthinking. Ali, how are you this week?
I am doing absolutely fantastically, thank you very much. It's been an interesting week. Been on psychiatry, mental health placements, seeing all sorts of patients that I've never really seen before. But I really like that thing that we did last week where we read out a random review. So I'm just going to read out one of the reviews that we got this week.
Nice.
Pause, which is the one that you were talking about.
That's a good idea. I'm going to steal that idea for my podcast.
I think
it encourages people to leave a nice review.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Hashtag growth hacking.
Yep.
Okay, so our review this week is from Emily Grace, who says, I found this podcast around the second episode commuting on the way home from school and instantly loved it. It really de-stressed me, completely opposite in comparison to some people who believed it was an anti-anxiety podcast. I actually find two posh kids overthinking the mundane rather relaxing. I stopped listening a couple of weeks later, maybe because of exams, but then I binge listened and caught up with everything. It's actually brought up some interesting conversations with my mum in the car and inspired me to actually sort out my time management because that's a disaster. Anyway, I really enjoy it and it makes me feel smarter. So thank you very much, Emily. That's very kind of you to say. And if you guys want to have your review read out, shout it out on the old podcast, then leave us a review on the iTunes store. iTunes store, is that what it's called?
Podcast store, something like that.
App store, who knows?
Yeah, so thanks for the reviews. Today is a very special episode. We have a very special guest with us.
Hello.
So we are joined today by
guys.
Sara Dietschy, which famously rhymes with peachy. And Sara is an incredible YouTuber. Sara, for the two people in the audience who don't know who you are, can you give us a quick bio?
Of course. Thank you guys for having me. It's an honor. Y'all are very smart. So hopefully I can fit in here as a content video creator. I'm not a doctor or a brilliant writer. Or what would you say your title is? Are you a professor?
No, I'm just a humble data scientist.
A data scientist. Okay, so we got a data scientist, a doctor, and a YouTuber. I'm sure there's a joke in there. But yeah, I make videos. I've been a YouTuber since 2015, 2016. I posted my first YouTube video in 2011, and I love making videos about tech and creativity. And I love it. It's fun. I stay busy.
And you've got
and I live in New York City.
Oh, and you live in New York, and you've got a podcast as well. Can you tell us a little bit about your podcast?
Yes. So I have a podcast called thatcreative.life, and it really started from what I was originally doing on YouTube. I did a lot of docuseries based on creative people, interviewing people. I started my YouTube channel actually behind the camera, which is kind of rare. And last year, when I was kind of missing that element of the videos of interviewing other creators, I was like, what a perfect opportunity to do in a podcast. And I don't have to spend weeks editing it because it's a podcast, not like a documentary film that I'm stressed out about editing. So yeah, That Creative Life, I explore anyone from CEOs to artists and how they do what they do. And how to make kind of money as a creative, because that's fun, right?
Fantastic. And we will, of course, be linking to That Creative Life and all of Sara's stuff in the show notes. So if anyone actually reads show notes for things, then, check out the links in that, subscribe to her YouTube channel, check out the podcast, etc. So, Tamor, what's our topic for this week?
Right, so I thought what it would be interesting to do this week, now that we have not one, but two internet famous YouTubers with us, would be to explore how both of your lives have sort of been affected by sort of being internet famous and how you guys sort of deal with that and feel about everything that comes with that. So Ali, we've sort of talked a bit about what you used to be like back in school and why you ended up starting the whole YouTube thing. Sara, what about you? What were you like when you were younger? Let's start sort of primary school, elementary school for you guys, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, going all the way back. And I would love to hear your story, Ollie, about being a doctor and a YouTuber. That's just insane. But yeah, I was a big tomboy. So I always was kind of exploring my interests, whether it was playing football with my friends, or in middle school, I really got into music. So I played electric guitar, I was in band, then I got into basketball. So really my first half of my childhood was hardcore sports. And then the last half was really when I started exploring creativity, and my conduit to video was music, which the more people you ask, there's always a music background, it seems, whether you play drums or guitar. I see a guitar behind the shot. And so music is such a awesome thing because it's so fun, but you get to a point in your life where I guess I'm not going to be the guitar player for Taylor Swift. I guess I'm not going to tour with Paramore. Okay, cool. I got to figure something else out. So that's kind of when I had always been making the music videos for my band. I was always making the goofy high school music rap videos for projects. And so when I kind of took a step back and I was like, oh, I really enjoy this video thing, that's when I really gave it a shot, started doing wedding films and the boring corporate videos kind of later in high school and the beginning of college. And yeah, that's kind of like a general overview. And then I went to college for 3.5 years for electrical engineering. So that is like a super random blimp on the life of Sara Dietschy. But yeah, it's very random, but I was always super adamant on kind of just going all in on my interests at the time. And I wasn't afraid to pivot.
Nice. I mean, it sounds like you've done a ton of stuff. So at what point did you start getting comfortable sort of putting yourself out there, like having your face on the camera rather than being behind the camera?
That didn't start until probably like the third year of me making YouTube videos. So my first YouTube video was to sell a guitar pedal that I wanted to sell. And it's just me behind the camera of my dad's camera. He had like a Canon T3i. I was like, Dad, can I borrow your camera again? He's like, fine. And it's so funny because the early days of the DSLRs, I'm sure you guys can relate if you got into it, 7 years ago. It was such a cool thing to, turn on. Well, you didn't turn on manual focus. There wasn't autofocus. How crazy is that? But it was so cool to blur into shots. So if you watch my first video, it's like all blurry, focus. And then like half of it is blurred. That was the thing you did for B-roll shots, is like blur to non-blur. So yeah, it took me a while to get comfortable. My first videos are so cringy.
The blurring thing is hilarious. I think it was about 7 years ago that I first got a DSLR and I started dabbling in like filmmaking, and it's exactly as you say, like all this B-roll of like blurring and then going into focus and blurring again. It was.
I'm like, why was that such a big thing?
Yeah. So what made you want to start sort of putting yourself in front of the camera?
I think it was. I mean, honestly, so maybe I can back up. In terms of YouTube, I was kind of shy, but when it came to school projects, all of my friends were in front of the camera, so that made it super easy. We did really cheesy. We would take like a Nicki Minaj song, and I would change the lyrics to lyrics that have to do with economics. And so we would do super bass, but it's called The Law of Supply and Demand. And then it would be me and my friends in front of the camera just goofing around and like pretending like we're in music videos. So in middle school and high school, it was fun just because I wasn't posting it to the internet, but I got to show my 20 classmates, try to impress them. So it wasn't until I was like, oh, okay, people are actually viewing this, and there's something to YouTube where people are connecting with personalities. And I didn't really think of it too hard. I just saw the other people who I was watching. I enjoyed their videos and they were in the video. So, okay, this is interesting. Let's try this. So, it started very, very minimal. It would be like half B-roll, and then at the end, I'd be like, "Hey guys, what's up? I hope you enjoyed this video." And it's so funny looking back because you really have to give 150% in order to come off as your normal self. I think it's so funny when in videos, if I'm like really on and I'm like, I'm just like my normal excitable self, people will think I'm like on drugs or I'm high or something. I'm like, you guys don't understand. This is like how I really am. So on those rare moments where you get to show that to the internet, it's fun to see people's reactions, because it is hard when you put a camera in front of yourself. You go into yourself a little bit. You get kind of a little bit more shy and a little bit more like, so.
Yeah, that's so true. Like, I found that occasionally when people ask me about a topic that I've made a video about. So like, I had a friend ask me the other day, what books would you recommend that have changed your life? And I was like, oh, right. I've made a video called 3 Books That Changed My Life. And I started talking about it. And he said that I sounded as if I was in a YouTube video, because automatically I became a more kind of, exaggerated, slightly higher energy sort of person. Mm-hmm. Whereas on the podcast, I quite like it because you can just kind of talk into a microphone, talk at a fairly normal pitch. You don't have to, I don't know, like when you're in front of a camera, I don't know if you find this, Sarah, but I feel like I'm very, very matter of fact and like talking in a very kind of loud and sort of rhythmic way, which just isn't really real life, but I hope it comes across as semi-normal in video.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. But I'm curious, what was the point where you started to make YouTube videos? Because I'm sure you had years and years of school. You were trying to be busy, or I'm sure you were busy being like trying to be a doctor.
Yeah.
How do you find the time?
So my gateway drug was also the music thing. Okay. I imagine you're familiar with Kurt Schneider.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've been following him on YouTube since like 2007 or 2008 or whatever. And it was always my dream to be like Kurt Schneider. For those of you who don't know Kurt Schneider, he's like this YouTube music producer guy, and he plays like all the musical instruments in the world. And he gets his friends who are really good at singing to sing covers of popular songs alongside, and makes like incredibly well-produced music videos about that. So I used to fantasize about being the music guy, and I had a few friends who were interested in singing. And so we kind of started dabbling with that a little bit. And so my first few videos were in medical school, because I had a few friends who were into singing, and I'd be playing guitar, and we'd be trying to film with like this random 20-pound Steadicam that we got off Amazon, and not really knowing how to hold it, and not knowing you have to hold it with 2 hands, so only holding with one hand, and shaky footage and all that. So that was kind of the start. And then 2 years ago, when we're medical students in our penultimate year, we go away on elective. So that's where you go anywhere in the world and you do some medical stuff. So I went to Cambodia and Vietnam to do this plastic surgery thing. And I thought it would be cool to make a travel kind of vlog. And that was around the time where I discovered you, Sarah, and Casey, and kind of realized this vlog thing was actually a thing. And then I realized, hang on, this vlog thing is a thing. It would be cool to vlog life of a medical student, life of a doctor in the UK, because not many people were doing that. And kind of then seeing your videos in terms of how you brought the tech stuff into it, I kind of was thinking, I'm quite into tech, why don't I make vlogs, and, then I can make tech videos and study videos and stuff. And it just kind of went from there. And as you start something, initially no one cares. Like I was getting like 1 extra subscriber every day and refreshing the page so many times. And then I'd be like, oh my God, I'm now on 82 subscribers. Yes. Best thing ever. And then over time, as the numbers grow, then you get that sense of momentum, and then it just kind of kept going from there.
That's awesome. And I think what people discover is everyone has so many interests that really are relatable to a ton of people. Like, oh, you're a doctor who's into music and also tech. There's going to be a lot of people out there who probably share 2 of those 3 interests. And then that's your audience, and then you find, oh, wow, I'm getting views and people are subscribing. This is crazy.
So what would you guys say was like the first milestone where it was like, oh my God, like people are actually paying attention to this? Like what was like the first special moment for you, for both of you? I guess we can start with Sarah.
Mine was that first video I posted. So my only reason why I posted it to YouTube in September of 2011 was to sell this guitar pedal. It was a fuzz pedal. So if you don't know about music, it's basically you plug into it and it makes your signal super, super fuzzy and dirty sounding. And so it was like a really cool pedal. I was like, oh, people need to see and hear this before they can buy it. So I posted on YouTube. That was the only place I knew that was hosting videos. And I only did that in order to get the link that I could post to the gear page. If you guys know what the gear page is, it's basically where people used to buy and sell before Reverb. They should have become Reverb, but missed opportunity.
That's a story for
another time. Yeah, another time. And it was so weird because I was like, okay, maybe 50 people will click on this checking out the pedal. I sold it and, it was around 50 views. I was like, cool. All right, move on with my life. I come back 6 months later and it has like 1,000 views. I'm like, I totally forgot I even uploaded this video. What is going on? And that's when I really discovered YouTube as, oh, this is a video site built on a search engine. People are literally seeking out this video that I didn't promote at all to just discover what this pedal is all about. And so I didn't take it seriously until 4 years later, but I kind of use that as, oh, interesting. Okay, if I have any video projects that maybe people will seek out, I'll just throw them on YouTube and see if people will watch it. So the next 4 years of YouTube for me was so random. I would literally go to a Taylor Swift concert. I would record almost the entire concert. I would post it to my YouTube channel.
Nice.
I wasn't talking. I wasn't doing anything. Yeah.
Fighting the good fight.
I literally ranked up like 30,000 views on Taylor Swift's Red concert. Sick.
Nice.
So really my first like few years of YouTube, I didn't have any of those moments where it was like, oh, my first 100 subscribers, or oh, because really like my first 500 to 1,000 subscribers was just from random stuff like that. And then once I started taking it seriously, that's when it became a little bit more like, oh wait, when am I going to get past 1,100 subscribers? Because when you're actually trying, that's when you start paying attention to the numbers. I remember in the beginning, you could actually sit there. They fixed it now. But you could sit there and refresh your page and you could see the views going up. So when I was trying to actually try, I post a video, I would get like 10 views. I would literally sit there and refresh. I would sit there and click refresh until it was at like 100 views. And then I was like, okay, now I can share this because people know I'm dope enough to at least get like 100 views. So yeah, it's been a journey, right? I can't believe it's been 8 years. It's insane, but
That's amazing.
Wow, like my story is nowhere near as cool as that. I mean, I just started posting educational videos, and then people seem to kind of similar to you. People just seek them out, and then you just get people watching and commenting and things. And the strangest moment for me was there was a time like a few months after starting, I'd posted this series of videos about how to prepare for medical school interviews, and it was around the time that people were coming to Cambridge University for their medical school interviews. And I just didn't really realize this. So I was having dinner in town with one of my friends, and we were in this prezzo, this like Italian type restaurant. And we were just kind of sitting at a table in the middle, and she was telling me off for being a terrible friend because I was spending too much time editing videos. And she was saying that, when I sent you that message, I was hinting that, I had a problem and I needed a friend, and all you said was cool and all this sort of stuff. And throughout this dinner, we noticed that there was a girl sitting with her family on the table next to us who just kind of kept on looking over. And I had my, Gorilla Pod camera, fluffy microphone on top because I was vlogging that day, because at the time I was vlogging every day. And afterwards, she came up to us and she was like, oh my God, I recognize you guys from YouTube. I've seen your interview videos. Yeah, because both of us had been in some videos. And she wanted to get a selfie. And that was just like, whoa, my mind was completely blown that, this like 3,000 subscribers at the time or whatever it was, translated to people actually recognizing me in real life. So that was like my first real taste of internet fame.
That's awesome.
When did you first start sort of getting recognized on the streets and stuff, Sarah? And how did that sort of make you feel?
Yeah, it was so funny because it happened at a Panera.
Wait, at a what?
So, do you guys?
Is this
don't know what a Panera?
Panera bread?
Yeah, it's like it's a sandwich salad place.
Oh, okay.
So I don't remember which one was first, but it was when I was living in Nashville, Tennessee, and this was one of the two interactions where I had just posted a video about Casey Neistat. It went viral. I'm sure that's how you guys discover me, and it was crazy because I all of a sudden went from 4,000 subscribers to 40K overnight, and it just kept climbing. Because this famous YouTuber Casey Neistat, at the time he only had 1 million subscribers. Now he's at 10 million. But it was crazy because he shouted out my video in his video, and at this time that's when he was vlogging every single day. So people were like watching him every single day. And so the next day after he shouted out my video, I was living in Nashville, and I just went across the street to my local Panera to grab my lunch. And this dad and his kid come up to me and are like, excuse me, are you Sara Dietschy? And I was like, I was like, do you have the right person? Like, what is even happening right now? And they're like, yeah, we watched your video, like your Casey video. And I was just kind of like, okay, cool. And then because Nashville is actually a pretty small town, we actually had like mutual friends and stuff. So it was easy to talk to him. But that was so weird. I was like, I barely had any makeup on. I had my hair in a bun. I was just going across the street to get my sandwich salad combo for lunch. And, I was like greeted with that. But yeah, that level, because I by no means think I'm famous at all. Even if you have like 1 million subscribers on YouTube, I feel like you're not famous. But internet fame, I always say, is kind of the best version of fame, or whatever you want to call it, because you'll have 3 to 4 people, 2 people a week just come up to you on the street, especially here in New York, since I'm out and about all the time, and they'll just be like, yo, the stuff you make motivates me to like be a better person, or the stuff you make inspires me to create. That is the best. Like, that is so much better than, if I was like a movie star and you can't walk into a restaurant with someone just asking for selfies. It's like a very genuine, hi, shake your hand, look you in the eye. You inspire me so much. That, like, I actually just got goosebumps thinking of it. But yeah, it's like, it's awesome. And it doesn't ruin your life, Yeah,
that's something that a lot of people have been asking me about. They're like, oh, what about all the hate? And, if you get recognized on the street, isn't that like a bad thing? And I'm always like, no, not really, because I suppose for you, Sarah, the audience you're attracting is other people who are creators. And for me, the audience I'm attracting is students who want to, get into medical school, or people who are
Well, no
doctors.
one's going to hate a doctor.
No one's going to hate on that,
Are you kidding me?
It's not like we're posting about politics or about, anything particularly controversial. We're just posting videos that are helpful for a generally friendly group of people. And it's always very positive when, people do come up and say hello.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for the last few times that I've visited Cambridge just to hang out with Ali, he's sort of been recognized in the streets a bunch of times. I remember this sort of family kind of came up to us once because I think one of the daughters watched the videos, and we kind of had a nice interaction with them. It seems like a nice thing from the outside. So there's no, like, for you guys, there's no downside to being recognized out in public at this point then.
I mean, it's only in the moments where I'm like going downstairs to get a bagel in my like sweats and just I'm looking terrible, and then you get those stares from people and you're just like, oh my god, please don't recognize me, please don't recognize me. Like, I promise I'm not this ugly. But even then, like, who cares? But yeah.
What do your friends and family how do they sort of feel about your sort of internet fame and the fact that so many people watch your videos and care about what you're doing and so on? Has that been like strange for them?
My family's just glad I have a job. Like, I think there was a moment when I was like, it was this weird dichotomy, because for 3 years of my life after high school, I would go to, family Christmases, Thanksgivings, and I would talk about how I'm pursuing a engineering degree. Wow. That's, besides being a doctor or being a lawyer, great job, Sarah. You're doing it right. You got a scholarship. You're studying electrical engineering. We're so proud of you. And then when you kind of just flip a switch and you're like, hey, I'm dropping out and I'm going to be a YouTuber. That changes the vibe, right? And so even though it took about a year to really get to a point where people can wrap their head around, like, oh, she's doing well. My parents were always, my mom was always good with it. She knew I would be fine. My dad was more of the traditional, like, well, you just need to go out and finish school, like, finish school. But I'm like, if you're not paying for it, I'm not finishing school, like, this is my problem. And so, yeah, it was one of those things where definitely there was some people who had to get around to the idea, but I generally have a very supportive family. So after a year, when it got to a point where, like, where are you? You're in Japan doing work with this company, and like, oh, okay, I guess you're fine, right? So yeah, there's no level of like them thinking, again, that word famous. It's just now everyone understands, oh, she has a decent paying job, and if she's living in New York and surviving, I don't have to worry about her.
So Tame, that's kind of what you get about kind of doing maths, isn't it? Where people just kind of assume it's because you didn't get into medicine.
Really?
Yeah. I don't think I've had any reactions quite that harsh, but yeah, I mean, sort of, we're sort of from Pakistani backgrounds, and like you said, sort of medicine and law and engineering are the hallowed professions, and if you're doing those, then you're great. And so at family gatherings and stuff, Ali always, has a good answer of like, oh yeah, I'm just in my final year of medical school, or oh, I've just graduated, I've started work as a doctor. And then for me, previously it was, oh yeah, I'm doing a maths degree, I'm studying maths, and most people are kind of like, oh, okay, and they're not sure.
But that's great though. I mean, it's like a hard science, there's nothing debatable about it. It's not an English degree, so whatever to them. You're doing great. But yeah, Ollie, that's a little bit unfair. I'm sure if you're in the same room with him, he's like, oh yes, I'm a doctor. And
yeah, Ali really plays it up as well.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, no, I've kind of been through that. And then sort of after university, instead of going into banking or finance, which again would be sort of respectable professions for someone who studied maths, I kind of went into startups, and now I'm sort of trying to start my own thing. And so, yeah, I know what you mean by the sort of, oh man, what's she doing? Is she okay? kind of reactions. Ali, you've never really had any of that. It's always just been, oh man, you're killing it. You're like following.
Yeah.
I mean, the great thing about
a doctor
about
and
medicine
a
is that you just
YouTuber.
deflect all of that banter anyway.
Yeah, but I remember like Mimi, our mom, was kind of skeptical about the YouTube thing initially, right?
Oh, was she? She wasn't to my face. I don't know if she said anything to you.
Oh, okay.
What is the age difference?
1 year. So I'm a year older.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That must be an interesting. Yeah, I mean, since you guys are a similar age, is one person clearly like, Ollie, are you clearly the big brother, or was it more of like the similar playing field and you guys were competitive?
I don't know. Like from my perspective, I didn't really feel any sense of competition, but I think Tamon might have done.
Yeah,
I have a different story.
Yeah, I definitely felt a sense of competition, but I think it was good. I think it was sort of decent motivation for me to try and do well in school and try and do all that kind of stuff. And I think if I didn't have an older brother to sort of try and compete with in that respect, maybe I would have found the motivation to care about these things myself. But it was just like a nice shortcut to like, oh, okay, Ali's done this, I'd better like do something equally good,
Yeah. I would hate to have a sibling who's a doctor.
Yeah. Tell me about it.
It would always be like, so whose person, what life did you save today?
Yeah, I'm making software for financial modeling.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what Tame's startup is on, basically.
I mean, that's cool too.
It's extremely new stuff. Yeah.
So, Sarah, one thing I wanted to ask you. So when you get recognized, like on the streets by people, how does that interaction tend to go? Like, what do you say? Have you got like a spiel? Like, is there a pattern to the sort of chats that you normally have with people on the streets?
Yeah, it's usually the same thing that I go for if I meet anyone new. I'm like, yo, what's up? What's your name? What do you do? Are you based here? I'm pretty good with meeting people who I don't know. I treat it just like it's a person who I've met at a conference or something. And then, yeah, it's the awkward times are when, because I always take it back to when I go up to someone who I admire, because like I actually do it a lot. It's funny, the NYC to LA plane trips, you like tend to be on planes with like very important people. So I've definitely gone up to celebrities or actors I've admired or whatever. And I never want to ask for a selfie, but of course I want a selfie. So I kind of take that into account. If anyone goes up to me, if they don't ask for it, I'll make sure to be like, hey, do you want a selfie? Like, let's grab a picture or whatever. And usually 95% of the time people want one, but it's like the awkward moments where they're like, no, I'm fine. See you later.
I mean, oh no.
Like, okay. And I'm like, God, they probably think I'm like this self-obsessed person. And I'm like, no, it's just because I want to be nice.
Oh, that's so interesting. So, this story that Tamar told when this like random family came up to us in Cambridge. I was with we were with our mum at the time, and we were having a conversation and stuff. And I could tell the girl was pretty embarrassed because her dad was doing most of the talking. And afterwards, my mum said, "Hey, why didn't you ask her if you wanted to get a selfie?" And I was just like, no, that would have been the worst thing ever, because what if she had said no? Then I would have felt like an absolute narcissistic prick for suggesting it.
But see, like I always view it as it's always, if we have to deal with that embarrassment, that's nothing. But like the people who are too shy to ask and then they get that selfie, like imagine how much their day is made from that,
Yeah, that's true.
So
that's a good way of thinking about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Like if I saw Jennifer Lawrence on the streets, I would hands down be like, "Oh my God, Jen, I love you." But I would never ask her for a selfie. If she was like, "Oh, you want to take a selfie?" I would be elated.
That would be like the...
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't want to like compare us to Jennifer Lawrence because we are not on that caliber, guys, but just as an example.
So one thing I've always wondered with sort of celebrities and influencers and so on is that often you see people host like meetups, like Gary Vee, for example. Whenever he's in a new city, he'll be like, "Hey guys." Yeah, exactly. He'll be like, "Hey guys, I'm at this bar, come meet me." Or, that's
a great impression.
And he'll do like this meetup in a bar, and maybe like, I don't know, 30 or 20 or 30 people will show up. I've always wondered what the dynamic is like in those kind of group situations, because it's obviously not the case that everyone is just there to hang out with each other. Everyone's there to like hang out with you. And how do you sort of have this one-to-many interaction? Have you guys done meetups?
I did a few in the beginning, and I'm like, this actually isn't for me.
Oh, interesting. Why is that?
Yeah. I mean, as bubbly as I seem in videos and interactions with people in real life, I am very much so a hardcore introvert, to where if I'm at a conference, I will literally need 2 weeks to detox and not see anyone. I'll stay in my apartment. I gain energy by being alone, basically. And so when you do something like a meetup where everyone's attention is on you and that's the goal of it, it's so draining, because it's like, again, like you said, 30 people who want to just talk to you, and it's like this 4-hour event of people just seeking advice from you. And it's, God, this is probably going to sound like the most selfish thing. It's one of those things where it takes so much time and so much energy from you, and it's only for like 30 people, when I could like go on Instagram and Twitter and answer DMs for maybe an hour and like almost have that same effect on maybe 100 people. I don't know. That's why I started doing like networking events in New York. They're called Hustle and Why, and I invite all of my homies and fans, that have reached out to me, and I've kind of developed an online relationship too. I'll invite them to these events, but these events are like, yes, say what's up. I'm stoked to talk. But the goal of the events is more of like, hey, we're all like-minded individuals. There's YouTubers, there's investors, there's bankers, there's blah, blah, blah here. Talk to everyone because everyone's dope. In those situations, I'm way more comfortable, just because there's kind of this expectation of everyone's awesome, talk to me, but also talk to everyone, so the pressure is off of me. But yeah, it's one of those things too where I'm like, it's also a weird thing to be like, hey, I'm important enough for you guys to come to a meetup with me. It's just this weird thing I'm not wildly comfortable with the idea. I don't know. And honestly, as having like a 90% male audience, I'm also not the most comfortable with it if it's not in like a like public setting, to where your safety is like never completely insured, which it's like, I know that's like depressing to say, but it's true. So yeah, it's one of those things where maybe I'll have like a merch pop up once every 2 years or something, but I like to keep it more of like, hey, I'll be at a conference and I'm doing a 30-minute meetup at a conference, where there's like a line and there's like there's a structure to it. That was a long ass answer for like the most basic question, but yeah, there's like so many things to think about, I feel like, with that.
Oh, damn. That's so insightful. Like, I've never really done one of these sort of quote meetups. But I have occasionally had things where I've been to a conference for medical students where, lots of people recognize me and come up and ask questions and stuff, which is really nice because, I'm sitting behind a table, they're coming up to me, they're forming a queue.
That's the best way to do it.
It's perfect. You answer their questions one-on-one rather than have to, do this one-to-many kind of relationship whereby how do you really navigate that? So I guess...
so what you guys are saying is, all right, everyone, form an orderly queue. Man, these YouTubers, it's really got to their
What are they like, eh?
What assholes,
bunch of
right?
narcissistic, attention-seeking.
So, Ollie, I mean, you were really I think I don't really like the introverted, extroverted dichotomy, but if it exists, Ollie, you were definitely introverted in school, and I think you kind of wanted to change that, and you sort of made an effort to change that. Would you say that's accurate?
Oh God, yeah. Like as soon as I got to university, I was like, right, I'm gonna get out of my shell. I started watching, those Charisma on Command videos back when they were called kick-assery, not even Charisma on Command, and started following all these things about how to make friends and how to be sociable and stuff. And that worked really well, and people just considered me as a social guy at uni, and even to this day it still surprises me when people assume that I'm sociable, or the other day we were at some doctor's dinner and just someone just casually commented, oh, Ali's very good at keeping the conversation going, and I my mind was blown. I was like, what? No way. You cannot be serious. It's all worked.
That's so funny.
But yeah, that was a very active choice.
What was it like for you, Sarah? It sounds like when you were in school and stuff, you were doing a ton of different things like music and sports. Were you sort of fairly extroverted, introverted, somewhere in between? I
was the weird, I used to think that I was an ambivert, which is the middle ground. But I'm not. I think I'm just an outgoing introvert. And I don't think those things are mutually exclusive because basically when I'm down for being social, I'm social. I just need to go recharge alone. So it was one of those things where in middle school, high school, truthfully, I wasn't going out with my friends on Friday nights and Saturdays. I was working as a refereeing basketball games, and I was giving guitar lessons, and I would interact and be friends with my friends at school. And at school, I was very outgoing. I mean, I remember freshman year of high school, I leaned into the whole class clown vibe, which was so weird. I mean, I'm a goofy person. I like to have fun, but that's who I was at school. But really after school, I'm just editing videos and trying to get better at basketball. And I was always just hyper focused on my interest. And that really didn't lean to hanging out with other people until I got in a band. But even then I was only hanging out with those 3 people in my band. So I've always just I've had 1 or 2 or 3 people in my life. And those are the only people who I really hang out with. Now it's my boyfriend, John, and we hang out with each other all the time. And then when I hang out with friends, it's to do a podcast or do something creative. And I've stopped beating myself up that I'm not like everyone else, that I don't go out, for drinks every weekend. And it's just what I have to do to feel fulfilled. And hopefully my friends are on the same page where I don't have to see them every week for them to understand that we're still friends. And I think, when I have friends that are on that same page, it's, I basically don't have friends who get mad at me for making YouTube videos. So, because that would be a problem, because that's all I do is kind of, whatever my work is, that's where my main focus is. So yeah, I mean, I think to what you were saying, I think putting people in a box is never the best thing to do, because even though I do recharge by being alone, I put me in a room and I'll talk to a wall. I thoroughly enjoy talking to people, and that's why I love doing a podcast, why I love interviewing creatives, because I love to dissect people, dive in how they do what they do. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to go back to my apartment after and not talk to anyone for 8 hours. So
going to record for 2 weeks. Okay, so yeah. Sarah, I want to get a piece of advice from you. So next week or the week after, I'm going to Belfast in Ireland for this Power of Video conference. And your friends Peter McKinnon and Chris Howe and Lizzie Pearce and stuff are going to be there. And I've been following these guys kind of almost as long as I've been following you. And I feel like I want to fangirl over Peter McKinnon and stuff. How do how do you suggest I I kind of act when like, oh my God, Peter, I love you.
Peter, was that your American accent?
That was my American accent. Like, oh my God.
Very good. Very good. Well, yeah, but see, you're not even like, obviously you're a fan and that's always flattering, but you're also a creator. So, I mean, like literally right after this podcast, I'll put you in a tweet and be like, yo, Peter, Chris, look out for this dude. He's like an awesome doctor creator. Say hi at the Power of Video. You know, I'm telling you, it always goes back to tweeting. It really is this like cool place where you can just discover like-minded individuals. You can click on the link. Oh, they have a cool YouTube channel. Cool. So yeah, I mean, that'll be so fun. And Power of Video seems like a very just like chill place to be, where everyone's hanging out and there's not really lines or people are like, oh no, you can't talk to the YouTubers right now. So yeah. And again, once you have this podcast up too, that's why I love things like this, because you can be like, look, I had a podcast with your homie Sara Dietschy. That means you should know me. You know, that's my entire career, is like just leveraging my past collaboration to get the next.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
That'll be fun though.
All right, final question for you guys before we wrap up. How has being internet famous and, you know, getting recognized in real life and having all these people that care about what you have to say, how has that affected your confidence and or ego?
You want to go first?
Okay. So confidence, I think it has, I'm not sure it has in real life. So for example, one thing that I often struggle with is that when I'm telling a story in a social gathering or something, I'll always have this like nagging feeling in the back of my mind that what I'm saying doesn't have value. And so I'll tend to talk quite fast, tend to, you know, get to the punchline as soon as possible. And I know that that's not how you're supposed to tell a story. People actually want to listen. They want to be drawn in. They want to hear kind of some of the details, some of the imagery and so on. So I've been actively trying to work on that. But then when I switch a camera on and I'm, you know, talking for 5 minutes about a book, I just know that pretty much anything I say about this book is going to be valuable to someone somewhere. And there are people that are going to appreciate that I've gone on for 20 minutes about the 4-hour work week, or, you know, 15 minutes about the third door, or, you know, whatever book I've been reading. That hasn't quite translated into real life. I think it's a different sort of relationship that you have with the camera, just talking to yourself, as talking to a group of people, where you get that kind of group setting feedback and you're like, oh crap, maybe what I have to say doesn't actually have value. In terms of ego, I think it really has sort of massively inflated my ego quite a large amount. I was already fairly, I don't know if ego is the right word. I think self-assurance probably is more the right one, because I have no qualms with kind of looking like an idiot on the internet and stuff. And I think that if you have like a big/fragile ego, then people would have an issue with that. But it's kind of made me more secure that whatever happens, I'll be all right. You know, even if, God forbid, I get struck off the medical register, I'll still be all right. You know, I've got this other thing that I could be doing. So it just makes everything so much more pleasant knowing that you've got this like really good fallback if you need it.
That video would kill. You know how people make those videos, why I left BuzzFeed? Like, why I left being a doctor?
Oh my God.
You would be fine.
Great content.
You would be A-okay. Yeah. I mean, I think the reason why I am where I am today is because I've never had a confidence issue. I grew up in a house where my parents were always like very supportive, but they always play the line of like support, but like being very practical too. And it kind of like with everything that I did in life, where I used to be the best basketball player in my middle school team. I go to high school, all of a sudden like 4 schools are into one. Interesting. I'm not the best basketball player anymore. And, you know, I had this crazy confidence, but then once things start happening, you know, and I start having those real conversations with my parents, and they can be like, well, yeah, I mean, like maybe, you know, you kind of stopped growing, and yeah, maybe this isn't the best road for you to take. So there was always that, you know, and I was in a band, and they were the type of people, if I tried to sing, they'd be like, Sarah, go back to guitar playing. Like, you obviously cannot sing, you know? but they would always really champion what I was doing. When I was a basketball player, they were at almost every single game. When I played guitar, they would cheer me on at the shows. So my confidence really has stayed the same. But yeah, in terms of ego, I'm sure there is a point after making viral video, being at VidCon, all of a sudden I'm friends with all these YouTubers. You can get in that mentality of, oh, it's like me versus them. It's like it's the YouTubers versus the peasants who watch you. And that's like such a toxic way to think, because it's like you become a YouTuber and people follow you on YouTube because you have these quirky interests that they have too. Like, you are not different than the people that watch you. You just maybe took a step, beyond and put yourself out there and made videos, which is still amazing. But like, so many people on YouTube get YouTube famous for being relatable. So you can't all of a sudden be like, oh, well, I'm better than you because I have 1 million subscribers and you have 2. Like, that's such a weird thing. So, and I think it helped too. Once you start doing the YouTube thing, you realize that it is so, it fluctuates all the time. You could have 500,000 views one week, and then the next week your video gets 10,000 views. And if you start kind of choosing sides and looking at people differently and being like, oh, I'm not going to collaborate with them because they don't have the numbers. Well, guess what? They might be the most YouTube famous person the next week. And oh, if you were a dick, then they're not going to hang out with you and collaborate. So it's really one of those things where, if you if you kick your ego to the side and you realize that it's just like a bunch of homies making videos and collaborate and have fun, you're going to be much better off. Because you're not a rocket scientist. Like, you're making YouTube videos,
That's a really, really nice note to end on, because I think, that applies to YouTube very well, but I think that applies to life in general. It's a nice way to just view everything that, there's no ego side of it. We're all just a bunch of homies, doing stuff together and
We're a bunch of dorks. Truthfully, like, I started making videos like unboxing cameras and talking about guitar pedals. Like, I was not the cool person in high school, so it is weird when all of a sudden you get attention. But like, the most famous people on YouTube, I guarantee you, besides Logan Paul and Jake, they were very clearly the like jocks of the school. Yeah, usually YouTubers were not the cool kids, and that's why they're YouTubers. So
awesome.
Yeah.
That sounds like a great note to end on. So, Sarah, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure to see you on video chat rather than just on video. Sounds really weird.
Yeah, we're Skyping for the audience for context. So yeah.
So we like to end each episode with a little insight of the week that one of us has kind of something we've been thinking about or a funny thing we've come across. Sarah, what's your insight of the week for us?
Oh gosh, you put me on the spot. I don't know. What are y'all's insight of the week? While I think about my insight of the week.
Okay. So I've got an insight of the week. So actually in last week's episode, that was week 1 of my Twitter journey, and I was marveling at how amazing Twitter was, and I managed to connect with our mutual friend now, Thomas Frank, and we ended up having a video call, and he gave me loads of advice and connected me with loads of people, and he's like super cool, nice. He's
awesome.
Like, decent guy. And now this is week 2 of Twitter and actually kind of vaguely engaging with people and stuff. And now here we are with the incredible Sara Dietschy. So
I love it.
For anyone who hasn't yet started using Twitter, me and Sarah will highly, highly recommend it.
Mm-hmm.
Has that bought enough time, Sarah?
Is it time for my insight? Well, I'll piggyback off of you and just say that social media isn't strictly just for numbers. It isn't strictly just for clout. There are some social medias out there, i.e. Twitter, that is truly, I believe, the last social media. It truly is for interacting with people, and it's truly for building relationships and connecting and making these IRL interactions come true. Like, wow, we took a tweet and now we're hanging out talking. And I think that's truly what makes social media great. And there's very few of them left. So go Twitter.
Awesome. I wholeheartedly agree with that. Instead of having my own insight, I'm going to agree with both of your insights.
Okay, so our insight of the week is all about Twitter. And then Sarah, I was thinking, so in about a year's time, I'm going to be taking a break from being a full-time doctor, and I want to do the whole traveling the world thing. So I really want to come to New York. So I think you and I should get together and we can collab on a Taylor Swift duet or sort of some sort. Because I'm a huge fan of Taylor as well.
Only if it has to do with Taylor Swift.
Incredible. Yeah, let's do it.
Sounds great. Hit me up on Twitter. I'll be here.
Fantastic.
Alrighty. That's it for this week. So Sarah, thanks so much. It's been great to chat. Where can people follow you on Twitter? What's your username?
Yeah, so I am Sara Dietschy everywhere. Sara Diet SCHY. And then my podcast is called That Creative Life. So you can search that anywhere. But yeah, this was such a good chat. Thank you guys for having me.
All right. Thanks everyone. And we'll see you next week, hopefully. Take care.